The story of T.I. and Tiny was once seen as a hip-hop fairy tale, a story about power, fame, loyalty, and love. Together, they built an empire that stretched far beyond music, from television to fashion to business ventures. For years, they presented themselves as the perfect example of how two people could survive fame and family under one roof. But every empire has cracks. And for T.I. and Tiny, those cracks were about to split wide open. What began as whispers online soon became one of the most talked about scandals in entertainment, a story that would test reputations, loyalty, and even truth itself. Because when the news of a DNA test surfaced, everything they had built began to unravel. For years, fans followed T.I. and Tiny's journey closely. They were more than just celebrities, they were a brand, the family hustle. The world had seen them raise children, overcome challenges, and support each other through public controversies. But behind the scenes, there were rumors that not everything was as perfect as it seemed. Whispers of infidelity had been floating through the industry for years. Friends and insiders claimed that the couple's relationship had grown strained, that Tiny's trust in T.I. had been tested more than once. But no one expected that a private matter, something meant to stay behind closed doors, would soon explode into a full-blown public disaster. It all began with a rumor that a secret DNA test existed, one that could change everything. At first, no one believed it, but as blogs began posting cryptic messages and anonymous sources started leaking hints, the internet caught fire. The allegations were shocking. That T.I., the self-proclaimed King of the South, was connected to a child outside his marriage, a child linked to Tiny's longtime friend, Shakina. What made things worse was the claim that Tiny had known about the situation, but had tried to keep it quiet. When the alleged test results surfaced, confirming the rumors, the internet went into overdrive. Within hours, the story became a global headline, and in the court of public opinion, T.I. was already guilty. Then came the silence. T.I. disappeared. There were no posts, no interviews, and no public appearances. Fans wondered where he was, while critics said his silence was an admission of guilt. But those close to him insisted it was something else: strategy. Behind closed doors, T.I. was meeting with his team. Lawyers, managers, and PR professionals gathered to craft the perfect response. He wanted to sound firm, but not angry. Human, but not broken. The plan was to control the narrative, to take back power from the blogs and gossip sites that had already written his downfall. Weeks later, the silence finally broke. T.I. reemerged with a carefully planned interview, a sit-down conversation that would send shockwaves through the industry. The teaser alone went viral. Fans flooded the internet waiting to see what he would say. When the full interview premiered, the tone was controlled but heavy. T.I. presented himself as a man who had made mistakes but didn't deserve public destruction. He spoke about betrayal, love, and loyalty. But as the interview went on, it became clear that he wasn't just defending himself, he was also pointing the finger at others. Without directly naming names, he implied that people close to him, including Tiny, had made choices that turned their private issues into public humiliation. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning shot. To understand the fallout, you have to understand what T.I. and Tiny represented. They weren't just celebrities, they were a family brand. Together, they built careers, raised children, and cultivated an image that balanced fame and normalcy. For years, their fans admired how real they seemed. But fame has a way of amplifying every flaw, and what started as minor disagreements began to turn into something bigger. Behind the camera, T.I.'s world was changing. His career, once unstoppable, faced new pressures from both the music industry and his personal life. Tiny, who had sacrificed much of her own career to support his rise, was now finding her voice again, and that shift created tension. Close friends said their relationship had grown cold, filled with silence instead of laughter. But still, nobody expected what would come next. When news of a secret DNA test leaked online, it sent shockwaves through social media. The results confirmed suspicions that Tiny had allegedly tried to keep under wraps, something deeply personal, tied to loyalty, family, and truth. In the world of celebrity gossip, a story like that spreads faster than fire, And once it's out there, there's no putting it back. As the story gained traction, blogs and YouTube commentators dissected every detail. What did the test prove? Who leaked it? And more importantly, what did it mean for the couple's marriage? For weeks, Tiny remained silent, refusing to confirm or deny anything. T.I. disappeared entirely. His social media went dark, his public appearances vanished, and fans began to wonder if the silence meant guilt. Behind the scenes, insiders say T.I.'s team was in full damage control mode. The scandal wasn't just personal, it was financial. Sponsorships, partnerships, and media opportunities started to fall apart. The family hustle brand that once made them relatable was now tainted by controversy. For years, T.I. had built his reputation as the King of the South, a title that symbolized more than music. It was about dominance, leadership, and respect. But suddenly, that title felt hollow. The blogs started calling him Atlanta's fallen king. And then, just when the internet thought he was done for good, he made his move. After nearly a month of silence, T.I. resurfaced with a carefully planned strategy. A teaser for an exclusive sit-down interview dropped online. The thumbnail showed him in a dark room, dressed in black, his eyes fixed on the camera with quiet intensity. The internet froze. Everyone wanted to know what he had to say. When the full interview aired, it was clear this wasn't a spontaneous confession, it was calculated. T.I. spoke like a man who had rehearsed every line, determined to reclaim control of the narrative. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't point fingers outright, but he made one thing clear. He felt betrayed. According to him, the DNA test wasn't supposed to be public knowledge. It was, as he described it, a family matter. That statement alone flipped the entire story upside down. What had been framed as T.I. being exposed was now being reinterpreted as an inside betrayal. Fans began speculating that someone close to them, maybe even Tiny herself, had leaked the test. In one moment, the sympathy shifted. Tiny, once viewed as the victim, was now under scrutiny. And T.I., who had been silent for weeks, was suddenly being painted as the one wronged. The internet became a battleground. Supporters flooded social media with hashtags like T.I. Speaks and Justice for Tiny. Comment sections filled with heated debates. Some called T.I. brave for finally speaking up, claiming he'd been silent for too long while his reputation was dragged through the mud. Others accused him of gaslighting and playing the victim to salvage his image. Every major gossip blog ran headlines about the interview. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to analyzing his tone, his body language, and his word choice. YouTube channels replayed the video frame by frame, arguing about who was really telling the truth. And through it all, Tiny said nothing. Her silence became both a shield and a weapon. Some saw it as strength, proof that she was choosing dignity over drama. Others saw it as guilt. But just as the internet began to settle into its divided camps, another voice joined the chaos, one that nobody expected. Shakina Anderson, a longtime friend of Tiny's and someone who had once been part of their inner circle, went live on Instagram. What followed was pure chaos. She spoke with emotion, frustration, and anger, claiming she had been dragged into the drama against her will. She alleged that T.I. had tried to silence her with hush money, promising to make things right if she stayed quiet. But when those promises fell apart, she decided to tell her truth. In her live stream, she hinted that she had proof, screenshots, texts, and voice recordings that could expose everything. Whether she was bluffing or not didn't matter. The internet ate it up. Her words gave the scandal new life, reigniting conversations that had just started to die down. Now, it wasn't just about T.I. and Tiny's marriage, it was about loyalty, deceit, and betrayal among people who once called each other family. The story had evolved into something much bigger than a domestic dispute. It was now a full-blown public war. While the internet was caught up in the drama, the business world was quietly moving on without T.I. Brand deals evaporated. Collaborations were paused indefinitely. Tour promoters canceled shows. Within weeks, reports estimated T.I. had lost over $30 million in deals, sponsorships, and appearances. For a man who had spent 2 decades building a career defined by confidence and control, the silence from the industry was devastating. Even fellow artists, people who had once called him a mentor or big bro, began distancing themselves. Social media unfollows turned into statements. The hip-hop community, once his kingdom, now looked away. But if there's one thing T.I. has always been known for, it's his ability to flip the narrative. When everyone counted him out, he made his next move. A few days later, T.I. posted something unexpected, a cinematic video on Instagram. No caption, no explanation, just visuals. The video opened with sweeping drone shots of Atlanta at dawn, the skyline bathed in golden light. Then, a shadowed figure walking alone through the streets. The music was haunting, the tone somber, and then, over the music, a voice echoed. A king falls, but only fools think he won't rise again.
Fans went wild with speculation. Was this a teaser for a documentary? A new album? A tell-all? Nobody knew, but everyone was watching. The video went viral within hours. Insiders later claimed it was part of a larger project, a docuseries titled Redemption: The Real Story. Whether true or not, the message was clear. T.I. wasn't done. He was taking his story back. Then, without warning, Tiny responded, not with an interview or a video, but with a single Instagram post. It contained just 12 words. Some truths don't need defending. They speak for themselves. That was all she said, and it was enough. Her calm, understated response resonated across social media. Blogs called it the ultimate silent clapback. It was the opposite of T.I.'s cinematic statement. Quiet but cutting. Short but powerful. She didn't name names, but everyone knew who it was meant for. For the first time since the scandal began, the balance of public opinion started to shift again. Fans praised her grace and composure, calling her the real winner in a situation that had spiraled completely out of control. As the noise faded, so did the chaos. The scandal that once dominated headlines slowly slipped from the front page. Tiny began focusing on her family and career, appearing in public with quiet confidence. Shakina's social media presence faded, her tone calmer, her energy drained from the months of fighting. And T.I., though still standing, was forever changed. The man who once defined himself by control now faced a world that had watched him lose it. His music career continued, but the shadow of the scandal followed him everywhere. Some fans forgave him, others never would. The DNA test, once a private matter, had become a symbol, a reminder that in the age of social media, no secret stays hidden forever. It wasn't just about who was right or wrong. It was about how fame turns personal pain into public entertainment. The internet immediately exploded. Social media turned into a war zone. Supporters claimed T.I. was brave for speaking up after weeks of silence. Others accused him of manipulation and deflection. Some saw him as a man fighting for his reputation, others saw him as someone trying to rewrite history. But one line from that interview changed everything. T.I. hinted that the DNA test, the very heart of the scandal, was never supposed to go public. He suggested it was meant to remain a private family matter, not something for the world to see. That subtle confirmation was all the internet needed. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the test itself. It was about the betrayal behind its leak. And for the first time, Tiny was no longer just a victim in the story. She was part of it. Bloggers began to dig deeper. Reports surfaced claiming that Tiny's legal team had filed motions to seal certain documents connected to family matters. Other outlets suggested someone in their circle leaked the DNA results without her permission. Headlines screamed across the internet. Tiny Harris tried to hide DNA evidence. Sources claimed T.I. was right. Court filings suggest confidential test. Tiny didn't respond. Her silence made people question everything. Meanwhile, T.I. capitalized on the chaos, posting short, cryptic messages on Instagram about truth and betrayal. His words fueled speculation, and the more he posted, the more divided his fan base became. The conversation quickly became bigger than the couple themselves. Fans split into two camps, those who believed T.I. was finally telling his truth, and those who thought he was gaslighting his wife once again. Commentators revisited old interviews, dissecting every word, every look, every detail from the couple's past.
Clips from their reality show resurfaced as people tried to pinpoint the exact moment when things began to fall apart. 2 hashtags trended for days, one defending T.I. and another demanding justice for Tiny. Social media became a battlefield, and every influencer, gossip channel, and podcast wanted a piece of the story. And just when the internet thought the dust was starting to settle, another twist threw gasoline on the fire. Late one night, Shekinah Anderson, the woman at the center of the rumors, went live on Instagram. Her tone was unapologetic. She didn't have a PR team or a script. What she had was a message, and it was explosive. She accused T.I. of trying to silence her before the DNA results were leaked. According to her, he had promised to handle things privately if she kept quiet, but he never followed through. She claimed to have proof: screenshots, old messages, voice recordings. She didn't release them, but she made it clear that if he kept speaking publicly, she would. The internet exploded again. Shekinah's words added a new layer to the chaos, not just betrayal, but alleged bribery, deception, and threats. Suddenly, this wasn't just a family issue. It was a scandal that could end careers.
While the gossip spread online, the damage behind the scenes was becoming irreversible. Brands that once worked closely with T.I. began backing away quietly. Sponsorships and endorsement deals were canceled. Concerts were postponed. Promoters cited unforeseen scheduling issues, but everyone knew what that meant. Industry insiders began whispering that T.I. had lost nearly $30 million in deals and future opportunities. Collaborators distanced themselves, radio stations stopped promoting his new music, and longtime supporters unfollowed him on social media. For the first time in his long career, the man who built his name on being outspoken was suddenly the one no one wanted to associate with. But if there's one thing T.I. has always been known for, it's resilience. A few days after the backlash peaked, he made his next move. A cinematic video appeared on his Instagram feed, with no caption, no hashtags, just visuals. Drone shots of Atlanta at sunrise, the skyline covered in mist, and a lone figure walking through empty streets. A voiceover, deep and deliberate, spoke about the fall of a king and the promise of redemption. It was cryptic, poetic, and perfectly timed. Fans immediately began speculating. Some believed it was a teaser for a documentary. Others said it was the announcement of a new album. But insiders hinted that it was something much bigger, the beginning of a multi-part docuseries called Redemption: The Real Story. It was clear T.I. was planning to reclaim his narrative once again. Then, without warning, Tiny made her move, not with a video or a press release, but with a single Instagram post. It was a black and white image with a short caption: "Some truths don't need defending. They speak for themselves." 12 words. No names, no explanations, no hashtags. The internet erupted, but this time the tone was different. Her calm silence spoke louder than any defense could. Fans flooded her comments, calling her strength admirable and her response graceful. Entertainment blogs called it the final word from the Queen of the South. While T.I. tried to rebuild his reputation through cinematic storytelling, Tiny had done it with a single sentence. As the weeks passed, the noise began to fade. The chaos that once dominated headlines slowly disappeared, replaced with new scandals and fresher stories. But the damage remained. Tiny shifted her focus to family, working quietly on music and spending time with her children. Shekinah's presence on social media began to wane. The fiery lives that once drew thousands of viewers became shorter, quieter, more reflective. The public had moved on, but the emotional fallout lingered. And T.I., he was left standing in the ruins of an image he had spent decades building. The DNA scandal didn't just expose one truth. It exposed money, about fame, loyalty, ego, and how quickly power can disappear when trust is broken. It showed that no matter how high someone climbs, secrets always find their way to the surface. For T.I., the silence that once protected him had turned into the very thing that haunted him. Because silence doesn't erase truth, it only delays its impact.